The restaurant was a powder keg, and the match had just been struck. By the time the clock hit 7 p.m., the air was thick with the kind of tension that makes your skin crawl. It started innocently enough. The Jackson family, Malik, his wife Aisha, their teenage daughter Nia, and Malik's elderly mother, Grace, walked into the Rusty Anchor, a cozy, upscale spot in the heart of downtown. The place was a local gem, with exposed brick walls, warm Edison bulbs dangling from the ceiling, and a menu that boasted farm-to-table dishes. The Jacksons were dressed sharply, their smiles easy, their demeanor unassuming. They'd come to celebrate Grace's 70th birthday, a milestone that deserved fanfare. But what should have been a night of laughter and clinking glasses turned into a scene no one in that room would forget. The hostess, a young woman named Sarah, greeted them with a tight smile. Her eyes darted over the family, lingering a fraction too long on Malik's tailored blazer and Aisha's elegant silk dress. She led them to a table near the back, close to the kitchen's swinging doors, where the clatter of pots and pans drowned out conversation. Malik raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Grace, ever the peacemaker, patted his arm. "It's fine, son. Let's just enjoy the night." They settled in, menus in hand, laughing softly as Nia teased her grandmother about her love for sweet potato pie. The restaurant buzzed around them, waitstaff weaving through tables, glasses clinking, the hum of chatter rising like a tide. But then came Emily, their waitress, a woman in her late 20s with a pinched expression and a chip on her shoulder that seemed to grow heavier with every step she took toward their table. Emily didn't bother with pleasantries. "What do you want to order?" she asked, her tone flat, her pen hovering over her notepad like she was already done with them. Aisha, ever polite, smiled and asked about the specials. Emily sighed, as if the question was a personal affront, and rattled off the list in a monotone. Malik's jaw tightened, but he kept his cool, ordering a bottle of wine for the table. Emily scribbled it down and walked away without a word. Nia leaned in, her voice low. "Is it just me? Or is she acting like we're invisible?" Grace chuckled, her eyes crinkling. "Some folks just need a little warming up, baby. Give her time." But time didn't help. Emily returned with the wine, slamming the bottle down so hard the glasses rattled. She poured with a carelessness that sent red wine sloshing onto the white tablecloth. Aisha's smile faltered. Malik's hand clenched into a fist under the table. Still, they said nothing, determined to keep the night about Grace. The food arrived, steaks overcooked, salads wilted, and Grace's fish suspiciously cold. Nia pushed her plate away, her teenage patience wearing thin. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. Malik shot her a look, but even he couldn't hide his frustration when Emily ignored their request for new plates, instead tossing a stack of napkins their way like they were an afterthought. The breaking point came when Grace, her voice gentle but firm, asked Emily to speak to the manager. Emily froze, her lips curling into a smirk. "The manager? For what? You're not happy with the service?" Her tone dripped with condescension, loud enough to turn heads at nearby tables. Diners glanced over, their forks pausing mid-air. The air in the restaurant shifted, like a storm cloud rolling in. Malik stood, his 6 feet 2 inches frame commanding attention. "Yes, we'd like to speak to the manager. Now." His voice was calm, but there was steel in it. Aisha placed a hand on his arm, her eyes pleading for peace, but even she looked shaken. Emily crossed her arms, her smirk growing. "You know what? I don't think this place is for you. Maybe you should just leave." The words landed like a slap, sharp and deliberate. Gasps rippled through the dining room. A man at the next table dropped his spoon, staring. Nia's eyes widened, her phone already in hand, recording. "Excuse me," Aisha said, her voice rising. You're asking us to leave because we asked for the manager? Emily doubled down, her face flushed. I'm saying you're causing a scene, and we don't need that here. Just go. She pointed toward the door, her voice carrying across the now silent restaurant. Every eye was on them. The tension was suffocating, a live wire sparking in the air. Grace, her hands trembling, stood slowly. "Young lady," she said, her voice steady despite her age. "You don't know who you're talking to, but you're about to find out." Emily laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Oh, please. I know exactly who you are. Nobody special." She turned to walk away, but Malik's voice stopped her cold. "Actually," he said, his tone low and dangerous. "You don't, but let me introduce myself.
I'm Malik Jackson.
This is my wife, Aisha, my daughter, Nia, and my mother, Grace. And we own this restaurant." The room went deathly quiet. Emily's face drained of color, her smirk vanishing like smoke. The other diners exchanged stunned glances. A waiter in the corner dropped a tray, the crash echoing in the silence. Emily opened her mouth, but no words came out. Malik stepped closer, his voice steady but laced with righteous anger. "You didn't just insult my family. You insulted every person in this room who came here expecting decency. You judged us the moment we walked in, didn't you? Thought we didn't belong here. Well, let me make it clear, we built this place. Every brick, every table, every damn fork. And you're done here." The weight of his words hung in the air. Emily's hands shook as she backed away, her eyes darting around for an escape. The other staff members stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene or retreat. Aisha stepped forward, her voice softer but no less powerful. This restaurant was meant to be a place for everyone, a place where people could come together no matter who they are. You've disrespected that. You've disrespected us. Nia, still holding her phone, spoke up, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and pride. "This is going viral, by the way. The world's gonna see who you really are." The diners began to murmur, some nodding in support, others pulling out their phones to capture the moment. The atmosphere was electric, a mix of shock, anger, and something else, solidarity. A woman at a nearby table stood and started clapping, slow and deliberate. Others joined in, the applause growing until it filled the room. Emily's face crumpled, and she fled toward the kitchen, the swinging doors slamming behind her. Grace, still standing, turned to the crowd. "I'm sorry you all had to see that," she said, her voice warm but firm. "But let this be a lesson. You don't judge a book by its cover, and you don't tear people down to build yourself up." The applause grew louder, a wave of support washing over the Jacksons. Malik put an arm around his mother, his anger giving way to pride. Aisha wiped a tear from her eye, and Nia slipped her phone back into her pocket, a small smile tugging at her lips. But the story didn't end there. The Jacksons weren't just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for something bigger. The Rusty Anchor had been their dream, a place born out of years of hard work and sacrifice. Malik and Aisha had poured their savings into it, turning a rundown diner into a thriving restaurant that celebrated diversity in every dish, every hire, every customer welcomed through the door. Grace had been the heart of it, her recipes the soul of the menu. They'd kept their ownership quiet, preferring to let the food and the atmosphere speak for themselves. But tonight, that secrecy had been shattered. As the night wore on, the manager, a kind-eyed man named Javier who'd been with them since the start, stepped in to smooth things over. He comped meals for the entire dining room, his way of apologizing for the scene. But the Jacksons weren't done. They gathered the staff in the kitchen after closing, away from the prying eyes of customers. Emily was there, her head bowed, her apron clutched in her hands. "We're not firing you," Malik said, his voice steady but not unkind. "Not yet, but you need to understand something. This place isn't just a business. It's a promise. A promise to treat everyone who walks through that door with respect. You broke that promise tonight." Emily's eyes filled with tears. I didn't know," she stammered. I made a mistake." Aisha shook her head. "It wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice. You chose to treat us like we didn't belong. And now you have a choice to make. Learn from this or leave." The kitchen was silent, the weight of her words settling over everyone. Javier stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. "We're a family here. We mess up, we own it, and we do better. Can you do that, Emily?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'll do better. I promise." Grace, who'd been quiet, spoke up. "Sorry's a start, child. But it's actions that matter. You've got a lot to prove." The next day, the video Nia had recorded went viral. News outlets picked up the story, and the rusty anchor became a symbol of something bigger: a stand against prejudice. A call for unity. Customers flooded in, some to support the Jacksons, others out of curiosity. Malik and Aisha used the attention to launch a community initiative, offering free meals to those in need and hosting workshops on diversity and inclusion. The restaurant became more than a place to eat. It became a beacon of hope. Emily stayed on, working harder than anyone to make amends. She listened, learned, and slowly earned back the trust of her coworkers. It wasn't easy and it wasn't quick, but it was real. The Jacksons, true to their values, gave her the chance to grow, just as they'd given so many others a chance to belong. By Grace's 71st birthday, the rusty anchor was unrecognizable from the night of the confrontation. The walls were lined with photos of community events. The staff was a vibrant mix of faces and stories, and the menu featured dishes inspired by every corner of the world. The Jacksons stood together at the center of it all, their bond stronger than ever, their dream not just intact but thriving. And in the quiet moments, when the restaurant closed and the last customer left, Malik would look at his family and think about how far they'd come. They'd turned pain into purpose, anger into action. They hadn't just owned a restaurant, they'd owned their truth. And that was something no one could ever take away. As the weeks unfolded, the rusty anchor transformed into something far greater than a restaurant. The viral video had sparked a movement, and the Jacksons seized the moment to redefine what their business stood for. Malik and Aisha worked tirelessly, meeting with community leaders, local schools, and even city officials to expand their vision. They launched a program called Table for All, offering free cooking classes to underserved youth and hosting monthly dinners where people from all walks of life could share stories over Grace's signature dishes. The restaurant's brick walls, once just a backdrop, now held framed letters from customers who'd been touched by the Jacksons' store, testaments to the power of resilience and redemption. Emily's journey was a quieter but no less profound arc. She showed up every day, her once sharp edges softened by shame and determination. She took on the grunt work, scrubbing floors, polishing silverware, restocking supplies without complaint. During staff meetings, she listened intently as Javier and Aisha led discussions on implicit bias and customer service. One evening, after a particularly grueling shift, she approached Grace, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mrs. Jackson, I don't know if I'll ever make this right, but I'm trying. I want you to know that." Grace studied her, her eyes sharp but kind. "Trying's good, Emily, but it's not enough to just try for us. You've got to try for every person who walks through that door, whether they look like you or not. That's the real work." Emily nodded, swallowing hard. "I understand. I won't let you down again." It was a promise she kept, step by painstaking step. She started small, greeting every customer with genuine warmth, memorizing regulars' names, and even suggesting tweaks to the menu to include vegetarian options inspired by a coworker's family recipes. Over time, her coworkers noticed the change. Javier, who'd been skeptical, began trusting her with more responsibilities. Even Nia, who'd been the most guarded, softened when Emily complimented her photography skills, sparking a conversation about social media marketing for the restaurant. The Jacksons, meanwhile, faced their own challenges. The sudden spotlight brought not just support but scrutiny. Online trolls flooded their social media with hateful comments, questioning their motives and accusing them of staging the confrontation for publicity. Malik spent late nights moderating comments, his jaw clenched as he read slurs aimed at his family. Aisha, ever the optimist, reminded him to focus on the good. "They're loud, but they're not the majority," she said, pointing to the thousands of messages praising their courage. Still, the hate weighed on them, a reminder that their fight was far from over. Nia, now a senior in high school, channeled her energy into activism. She started a blog, Voices at the Table, where she shared stories of discrimination and resilience, including her family's. Her posts caught the attention of a local news station, which invited her to speak at a community forum on race relations. Standing on stage, her voice steady despite the bright lights, she recounted the night at the Rusty Anchor. "That wasn't just about us," she said. "It was about every person who's ever been made to feel small. We have to keep talking, keep listening, keep building spaces where everyone belongs." The audience gave her a standing ovation, and Malik, watching from the back, wiped a tear from his eye. Grace, the family's anchor, found her own way to contribute. She began hosting storytelling nights at the restaurant, inviting customers to share their experiences over plates of her sweet potato pie. One evening, an elderly man named Harold, a regular since the restaurant's opening, stood up. His hands shook as he spoke. "I grew up in a time when folks like me white folks didn't think twice about treating people like the Jacksons differently. I'm ashamed of that now. This place, your family, you've shown me what grace really means." The room was silent, then erupted in applause. Grace hugged him, her smile radiant. "We're all learning, Harold," she said. "That's what makes us human." The restaurant's success didn't go unnoticed. A national food magazine featured the Rusty Anchor in a cover story, calling it a beacon of hope in a divided world. The article detailed the Jacksons' journey, from Malik's days as a corporate lawyer to Aisha's background in social work, and how they'd pooled their skills to create a business rooted in community. It also highlighted Emily's redemption, framing her as a flawed but earnest example of change. The article brought a flood of new customers, including a few celebrities who posted glowing reviews online. But for the Jacksons, the real victory was seeing their vision come to life, tables filled with laughter, strangers becoming friends, and a staff that felt like family. Yet not everything was smooth. One evening, a group of protesters gathered outside the restaurant, holding signs that read, "Stop race baiting," and "All lives matter." Their chants echoed through the dining room, unsettling customers. Malik stepped outside, his heart pounding but his resolve firm. "If you've got something to say, come inside and talk," he called out. "We've got plenty of seats." A few protesters scoffed, but only a middle-aged man named Tom hesitated, then followed him in. Over coffee, Tom admitted he'd been swayed by online rhetoric. "I thought you were pushing an agenda," he said. "But seeing this place, it's not what I expected." Aisha joined them, her voice calm but direct. "We're not here to divide, Tom. We're here to build. If you see something wrong, tell us. But don't assume you know our story." By the end of the night, Tom left with a takeout box and a promise to return. It wasn't a Hollywood ending, but it was a start. As the one-year anniversary of the confrontation approached, the Jacksons planned a special event, a community feast to thank their supporters. The restaurant was packed, with tables spilling onto the sidewalk under string lights. Volunteers served plates of Grace's fried chicken and Malik's famous cornbread, while a local band played jazz. Emily, now a shift leader, worked the crowd with a confidence she'd never had before. She stopped by the Jacksons' table, a shy smile on her face. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, "for giving me a chance to be better." Malik nodded, his expression softening. "You earned it, Emily. Keep showing up." She beamed, then hurried off to help a customer, her apron swaying. Nia took the microphone, her voice carrying over the chatter. "A year ago, we were humiliated in our own restaurant," she said. "But we didn't let that define us. We chose to fight not with anger, but with love, with community, with hope. Thank you for standing with us." The crowd cheered, and Grace, sitting beside Aisha, squeezed her daughter-in-law's hand. "We did good," she whispered. The night ended with a toast, led by Javier. "To the rusty anchor," he said, raising a glass. "To family, to second chances, to a world where everyone has a seat at the table." Glasses clinked, and for a moment, the world felt a little less broken. In the months that followed, the rusty anchor continued to grow. Malik and Aisha opened a second location, this one in a neighborhood hit hard by economic decline. They hired locals, many of whom had never worked in a restaurant before, and trained them with the same care they'd shown Emily. Nia, now in college, studied communications, determined to amplify marginalized voices. Grace, though slowing down, remained the heart of the operation, her recipes still drawing crowds. Emily, too, found her place. She enrolled in a community college course on social justice, inspired by the Jacksons' work. She never forgot the night she'd nearly lost everything, but she used it as fuel to keep growing. One day, she approached Malik with an idea, a scholarship fund for young people like Nia to help them pursue their dreams. Malik grinned, clapping her on the shoulder. "Now you're thinking like family," he said. The Jackson story spread far beyond their city. Schools used the viral video in diversity training, and community groups invited them to speak. But for Malik, Aisha, Nia, and Grace, the real work was at home, in the daily grind of running a restaurant that lived up to its promise. They faced setbacks, supply chain issues, staffing shortages, the occasional disgruntled customer, but they never lost sight of why they'd started. On a quiet evening, as the last customers left, Malik stood in the empty dining room, looking at the photos on the walls. Aisha joined him, slipping her arm through his. "We did more than build a restaurant, didn't we?" she said. He nodded, his eyes shining. "We built a legacy." The rusty anchor wasn't just a place to eat. It was a testament to what happens when you stand up, speak out, and refuse to let hate have the last word. It was proof that change starts small with a family, a meal, a moment of courage. And it was a challenge to everyone who heard their story, to look at the world around them and ask, "What can I do to make it better?" So, what do you think? Was Emily's redemption enough? Or should she have faced harsher consequences? How do we balance justice with forgiveness in a world full of division? Share your thoughts because the conversation starts here at the table.